Linux can be a little intimidating at first, but once you dive in, it gets a lot easier. In my opinion, it's a lot easier than Windows, but that's for you to decide. If you like cybersecurity, Linux, or ethical hacking, then this video is perfect for you because we're going to dive into the Linux terminal. We're going to walk you through Linux and walk you through some of the popular commands, and we're going to sprinkle a little bit of ethical hacking in there as well. Whether you've been in this industry since the dawn of time or you're just getting started in cybersecurity or IT, this video can act as a great refresher or a great entry guide to the Linux terminal. In this video, we're going to use Kali Linux, which is Debian based, and we're also going to have a test machine that we're going to work with that's going to be Ubuntu, and it's also Debian based. Let's jump right in. Before we jump into specific commands, let's get comfortable with the terminal itself. The terminal, or the command line or shell, is a powerful tool used to interact with our Linux operating system. You can open the Linux terminal by going up here to the top toolbar. You'll see this terminal icon. You can simply click it, or you can just press Ctrl-Alt-T and then it'll open up your terminal. For those of you that like keyboard shortcuts. Now let's go ahead and dive in. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Over here on the top toolbar, you'll see File. You can do a new tab, and then it'll open multiple tab instances. You can run new tab from preset, so terminal, horizontal terminals, vertical, or terminals. So let's just say we want horizontal terminals. It'll open up 2 horizontal terminals in the new tab. And then if we want to close a tab, we can just close it. This will close it out. So it's just like hitting this X on the right. You can open up a new window. It'll open up a new terminal window itself. And then we have preferences over here. You can come over here and change the theme. So we can do green on black, for example. For a lot of you hackers out there, just like that, it looks pretty cool. But for simplicity's sake, I'll just go ahead and change it back. Don't know which one it was. So let's just do Kali Dark. I think it was that one. And then you have multiple preferences, so you can change the widget style, scroll bar. You can customize it pretty much however you want, but we're not going to do that. So here's some of the shortcuts, drop down, bookmarks, things like that. So go ahead and close out of there. You can also quit just by doing quit, and then it closes it out. You do actions. You can split terminal horizontally here or split it vertically. And it also has keyboard shortcuts on the right side of this Windows Help panel. You can do find, you can handle history. You go over to edit, go to copy selection, paste clipboard, paste selection, zoom in. Maybe you want to zoom out. In this case, we'll zoom in. Zoom reset, it'll reset it back, but we'll want to zoom it back in. Over here on view, you have multiple check boxes. So you can do this check. You can check this box to hide the window borders. Looks kind of sleek this way, but we'll go ahead and keep it default. Show tab bar. You can full screen it, tab layouts, scroll bar layouts, keyboard cursor shape, so block cursor, underline cursor, or a beam cursor. So that'll be this white rectangle over here. We can change it, so underline cursor, maybe we can put the beam cursor. I kind of like it being a block cursor, so we'll keep it. And then you have help. We're not going to dive into help because we don't need help. That's why we're here, to help each other out. Now that we're comfortable navigating the terminal, let's move on to working with files and directories. Creating, copying, and deleting files is a breeze with these commands. So first up, we have the ls command, which lists the contents of a directory. So we can do just a simple ls to list the current directories and files in our current directory, or we could do a ls-l, and then that'll list all the files and directories in our current directory in a more detailed format. So we see the directory structure, we see who owns the files, what group owns the files, the size, the dates it's been modified, and so on. Now, if we want to do an ls-la, this will list all the files, even hidden files in our current directory. So we see the .bashrc over here, we see the .cache directory, and so on. So it's a lot more detailed and it shows us everything. Now, if we do a -l and the h, we can see the contents in a more human readable format. So if you just do a regular ls-l, you'll see 4096 for the size of this directory, but in a human readable format, we see that it's just 4 kilobytes in size, so it's a lot easier on the eyes. And back to the -lsa, all the hidden files and directories are going to start with a dot or a period in front of it. That way it's hidden from view. It's just like on your Windows Explorer, when you check the box to view all hidden contents, it'll list all the hidden files in your current directory that you're in. Now we have CD to change directory. So we can do CD to change directory. It's like opening a folder. To move to the home folder, we'll just do a CD to change directory and then the /home. And then we see that we got moved to the home directory. So if you do ls, we see that the directories underneath are a lot different from before. So now we see the Kali directory, which is for the Kali user on this host. Now if we do a cd ... it'll go up a level. So instead of the home directory, we're going to be in front of the home directory by 1. Now if you just do ls-l, you'll see that this is the home directory that we were just in, but we just moved up a directory. So now we see the entire root directory over here. Now in this file system, this is like the C drive over here. We see all the main folders and files in this current directory. And if we want to navigate to where our user is, like the /user folder on Windows, we can come over here to home, and then we see the Kali user. So just like on Windows, you see the user and then whatever your username is. And then we can go to Kali, and then we'll see there's nothing in there. And of course, we're using the root user. It's not best practice to be using the root user, but for this course, we're going to use the root user to make things easier on us. Now, let's say you're in a directory and you don't know how to get back to your home directory and you just want to go straight to the home directory. You could just do cd and then add the tilde, and then you'll see we're back in the home directory. So ls-la, now we see that we have our files back. Now if we do pwd, we'll see we're back in the root directory because we're the root user. So this is our home directory. Now pwd will print our working directory. So pwd print working directory. So just like we did before, run the pwd command. It'll show us the directory that we're in. Think of it as a way to check where you are in the file system. So if you went through a bunch of different directories, so let's say you cd to a bunch of different directories and you don't know where you're at, you just do pwd and then boom, it'll show you exactly the path that you're in. Now, if you need help with the command, let's say you want to learn more about the ls command, you can use the man page. Just by running man, you can look at the manual page for a specific command. Let's say we do want to see man ls, we can specify ls after the man page to see the manual page for the ls command. It's like getting detailed instructions on how to use that tool. So man ls, and then we'll see the manual page for using the ls or list directory contents command. And then if you just scroll down, you'll see all the different arguments that you could use. So -d to list directories, -f to list all entries in directory order. So, and it just keeps on going. And then to close out of here, you can either press H for help or Q to quit. So we'll hit Q to quit this and get out of here. Now, let's say we want to create a new file. We can just use the touch command. Touch will create a new file for us. So let's use touch and then let's say new file.txt and then hit enter. It's like creating a new blank document, easy peasy. And then if we do -ls-la, or maybe that's a little too difficult, let's just do ls-l, we'll see that we have a new file with 0 in size, meaning that we're not going to have anything. So this is a blank, fresh file that we just created. Now let's say we need to make a new directory. Let's go ahead and do mkdir. This is make directory or make dir, however you want to pronounce it. And then we'll just say new directory. So that'll do the trick. It's like creating a new folder. So now if we do -l, we'll see that we have a new directory over here. And by default, it's going to be 4 kilobytes in size. And then we'll see it's a directory by seeing the E in front of it. And then in our new file.txt, the new document we just created, we'll see that'll just have a dash in front of it. That means it's a file. So if you see D directory, if it's just a dash, it's just a file. Now let's say we want to remove this empty directory that we just made. We can do rmdir or remove directory, and then let's just say new directory, and then boom, delete it. Now if we do ls-l, we'll see that our directory is no longer in here that we just created. Now this command's not going to work over here if there's contents in that directory. You'll have to specify additional arguments to delete all the files or directories within that directory. So it's simple. You just want to make sure it's empty, and then this command will work. Now let's say we want to copy another file into a directory. So let's say we want to copy new file.txt into another directory. So we'll go ahead and move it into our desktop directory. That way we can see it populating over here too. So let's go ahead and do nano real quick and then the new file, just so we can type something random, like let's just say It's a beautiful, beautiful day. And then we'll see that the contents of the file is it's a beautiful day. So cat, you'll use cat to read the contents of the file. So let's go ahead and copy this file over to our desktop. So we'll do copy, and then we'll do the file name, and then we'll see new file, and then we'll go ahead and specify desktop. And then on Kali Linux, it'll autocomplete whether it's lowercase or uppercase, so it's a newer feature. But let's say you're on a different Linux host. Let's say you're on Ubuntu, for example. You may have to specify, it may be case sensitive, so you may have to specify the uppercase D for desktop and then autocomplete. And then you can just go ahead and hit enter. And then we see over here, it'll populate the new file.txt. So if we go ahead and click this file, open it up, we'll see that the contents is it's a beautiful day. So it copied this file and it moved to our desktop. Now, if you do a ls-l, you'll see that we still have our file here. We just made another copy. So it's a duplicate, but it's in a different directory. Now let's go ahead and make a new directory. So we'll just call it test. Now let's copy this new file that we just created into the new directory. So that way we can copy the directory and its contents to our desktop, just for an example. So we'll do copy new file, and then we'll put it in our test directory. Now, if we do a ls, we'll see our new directory test. And if we do a ls and specify the test directory, we can actually list the contents of that directory without having to navigate to that directory. So now we see ls test and then new file.txt. Now let's copy this directory and its contents, the txt file we just made, and put it on the desktop. So let's just do cp-r, the -r command or recursive command, which will copy all the contents regardless of directory or files within that directory and move it. So just to do it, cp-help. This is kind of like the man page, but it's a little bit easier. That way it's a little bit shorter. It's just a little help menu on how to use the command. So if we go scroll down to the -r option, we see -R and -r or lowercase r, recursive. So it copies directories recursively. Now we'll go ahead and do copy, specify the -r argument, and then we'll move test. And then we'll go ahead and put it on our desktop. And then now you see populated over here is our test directory. Go ahead and open that sucker up. And then you see the new file txt is in there. Open that up. It's a beautiful day. Now let's say we want to move or we want to rename files. We can use the mv command or move. So mv will move files for us. It's just a 2-character command. So we can rename a file by doing mv. Let's say we want to rename the new file txt. Maybe it's too long for us. We just want to call it file.txt. So we'll just type out file.txt, do a ls, and we'll see that it's now file.txt. So if we want to cat that out, we see cat file.txt. It's a beautiful day. All it did was rename the file. Now, let's say we want to move the file. We can also move it just by doing mv and then whatever directory we want to move it to. So let's go ahead and move it to our desktop directory. So let's do mv and then file.txt, and then we'll specify it in our desktop folder. So go ahead and just hit enter. Now we see populated over here is the file.txt folder. Go ahead and open that sucker. It's a beautiful day. Now we have too many folders and files that we created. So if we do a ls dash, let's say L, let's go ahead and create another file. So we'll go ahead and, or we could just copy from the desktop. So let's go ahead and copy the file.txt from the desktop, and then we'll paste it in our current directory. You can do so just by putting a period next. So just by adding a period, it'll copy the file from the desktop directory, and then it'll copy it here locally to whatever directory we're in. So now do an ls-l, we'll see that we have a file.txt over here. And just to see the contents of the file, it's a beautiful day. Now, let's say we have too many files and we want to remove some of these files. We could just do an rm and then the file name, and then just like that, boom, we just deleted it. So do an ls-l, we see we no longer have the file.txt in our current directory. Now let's say we want to delete directories. we can also use the rm command. So we can use the remove directory command rmdir, or we can also do rm. We'll just have to specify the -r option or recursive option, so that way we can delete the directory and all the contents within that directory. So just do an rm-r and then specify test, and then boom, just like that, that sucker's gone. So we'll do ls-l, and then we'll see we don't have that test directory in here anymore. Now to see it visually from the desktop, we can also remove the files and the folders from our desktop. Folders, directories, same thing. So I'm gonna mix and match it. It's just how I am. So it's not to confuse you. So let's do rm. Let's go ahead and remove the file, new file.txt from our desktop. We'll specify the desktop and then the file in that directory. Hit enter, just like that, it disappeared out of nowhere. Now let's say we want to delete the directory, rm-r for recursive, and then just specify the directory from desktop, and then test, my caps is on, oops. And then just like that, that sucker's gone too. Now let's remove our last file, you guessed it, rm, desktop, and then the file.txt, and bam, that sucker's gone too. Now we're gonna dive into the cat command again. So touch, let's do touch file.txt and then nano file.txt. It's a beautiful, I could spell it, day, exclamation mark now. And then if you do cat, it'll concatenate and then it'll read the contents of the file. So it'll display all the contents. So file.txt, it's a beautiful day. Now let's use the copy command and let's just copy the file.txt and then we'll call it file.txt, but let's add a 1 in front of, or let's add a 1 after file. So that way we have 2 of them. Now we see file1.txt and file2. With the cat command, you can read multiple files at the same time. So you can do cat file.txt and then you can do file1.txt. So now you'll see 2 beautiful days. So it's a beautiful day, now you see it twice. So now your day is beautiful times 2. Now the more command will let you view file contents just one screen at a time. So in the size window right here that we have, this terminal size, we'll see that we can only view one page. It's like one page at a time of the document. So if you do more file.txt, now it's not a really good example just because we don't have a long file. Now because our file is too short, we'll just go ahead and do man, let's say ls, and then pipe more. And then we can do the same. Now we can see the more command in a greater effect. So now if we just hit enter, we see we go line by line, but if you hit space, it'll go page by page. So it's a little bit easier, so that way you don't have to constantly scroll. You can easily get to the bottom of the page or go through the page just by hitting enter or space. So the more command can be useful for larger files. Now the less command is like the more command, but it just lets you view the files in the backward movements. Now we'll just do man, ls, pipe it, and then instead of more, we'll just do less. The less command is gonna be a little bit more super powered, so you can go up and down. It's a little bit better because instead of just going one direction, let's say you wanna go back to the top, you can just scroll up and down. So it's a lot easier this way. So you can use the ls command, so that way if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can easily scroll back to the top. Let's see if the home, yep, so if you hit the home key, it'll take you back to the top, hit the end key, it'll take you to the bottom, and then you can just hit Q to end and get out of there. Now I went ahead and added a few more lines, so now we have a total of 40 lines in our file.txt, so we can do the head command. You can use the head command to view the beginning of a file, so you can do head file.txt and then you can see the first beginning, the first few lines of that file. So it showed you the first 10 lines instead of all 40 lines. So if we do cat file.txt, we see that we have 40 lines, and with the head commands, it just shows you the first 10 by default. Now we can easily change that. We can first go ahead and hit clear, go ahead, specify the -n to specify the number of lines we want to see. So let's say we want 5, the first 5 lines, file.txt, and then it'll show you the first 5 lines. Now let's say we want 50, which we don't have 50, it'll just show you the entire contents of that file. So it's like a quick preview of the start of your documents. That way you don't have to read the entire document, you can just get a little sneak peek in and then boom, all looks good. Now tail is exactly the same. Instead of reading the top 10 lines of the file by default, it'll read the bottom 10 lines by default. So we'll do file.txt, and then we'll see it's the bottom 10, but you can't really tell. So we'll just go ahead and do a nano real quick. And then towards the bottom, we'll go to the bottom, and then we'll just do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so we can see the bottom line, so that we can see the bottom contents of the file. So again, if you up arrow, do tail file.txt, we'll see the bottom 10 lines of our file. So we just modified the last 5. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, same thing with head. You could do tail -n to specify the number of files that you want. So we'll do 5, and then we'll do file.txt, and then we see the bottom 5 lines, or the last 5 lines of the file.txt file. Now, if you want to do, let's say, the last 50 lines, which in this case will only have 40, it'll just show you the entire contents of that file. So it's just the opposite of head. So head, tail, just think of it like that. Head, you see the top, tail, you see the bottom. Now, we just edited that file, so let's talk about a quick editor. There's many editors out there, but for simplicity's sake, I like using Nano. It's super easy. Just specify the file, and then now you can come in here. You can just modify the file however you want. So it's a beautiful day, mate, bam, just like that. It's user-friendly and it's perfect for quick edits just like this. And then when you want to save, you can do a Control-O or Control-X to save the modified buffer, hit yes, and then hit enter. And then just like that, it saved the content. So if you want to cat that sucker out again, we see that it's a beautiful day, mate. So just like that, you could type away all day. Just make sure you save it. Sometimes you'll have to run it with root privileges or sudo. So sometimes if you don't, and you edit and you make a bunch of edits, it's good to use sudo, so that way you can write to that file. Otherwise, you're gonna lose everything, or you won't be able to save all the edits you just made. So just be wary of that. Now, file permissions can be a trickier topic. They're crucial for system security, and it's crucial to understand this. So now we can try to break it down step by step. Every file and directory in Linux has permissions that determine who can read, write, or execute them. These permissions are represented in a combination of letters and symbols. So overview of file permissions, just do a ls-l. We'll see that we have the R over here, which is going to be the read. So this allows viewing the file's contents. W, which is right next to it, this will allow us to modify the file's contents. And then the last option over here is X, which will allow us to execute the file of this, or execute the program. So if it's an executable file, we can easily just run it as an executable. Now let's take a look at the file.txt example. So the first character, which is this dash option over here, this will indicate that it's a file. For directories, it'll just be a D. So we see in this music directory, it has a D in the front, meaning it's a directory. And the file.txt has a dash, that it's a document and that it's not a directory. Now, files and directories are going to be broken down into 3 different groups. So we'll have the last 3, read blank X, and then we have the middle pair, read blank X, and then the first pair, read WX. So read, write, execute, read no permission, so no write, execute, and then read no write, execute. Now if you see a dash in place of the, let's say, read, write, or execute option, that means you won't have the permission to read to that directory as in the root group. That means you won't have permissions to write to that, let's say, file in whatever group that you're in. So the first set pair right here, read, write, execute, is for the root user. So this root over here, this is the user of the directory. So the desktop directory is going to be the root user. The second set is going to be the read blank X. So this is for the root group. So users in the root group, which will be this column over here, will have the ability to read and execute the desktop directory, but they won't have the ability to write to it. Doesn't make sense to write to the directory itself. So down over here, let's look at the text file. Everyone in the root group will have the ability to read but they won't have the ability to write or execute the contents in this file. And then the last pair will be the read dash dash. So this is for other users. Let's say I'm the default Kali user. As the Kali user, I'm not the root user and I'm not in the root group by default. So I will only be able to read the contents of the file. So think of it as the first set is for the user. The second set is for the person who created the group or the group of that file. And then the last set is going to be for everyone else on the system that interacts or comes across the file directory. Now, I found a quick change mod cheat sheet from Jake Glutch on Reddit. So Reddit can be sometimes a good resource to use. So this will explain a little bit better on how to change permissions or what the permissions means on the file or directory. So the -D will mean it's a directory. That's if you see it in the beginning. The R is the read privileges, W is the write privileges, and then X is for execute. Now you'll see if you want to change permissions, or you'll sometimes see the numerical values. What do these mean? Okay, so it's going to be binary. So we'll see the first 3 digits on the last column over here. We'll see 3 digits. So this is going to be the binary value. So 000 1, which equals to 1 for the first binary, and then 00 01, which is the value of 2, and then 0, and then 110 is going to be value 1, the second column value 2, add that together equals 3. Then the same thing for 4, 00, and then the third one is going to be a value of 4. Up here for 5, you have the value of 1 in the first 0. In the first spot you have 1, and then the third spot you have another 1. Add those together, 4 plus 1 equals 5. Again for 6, so that's 0, and then the second value is 1, the third value is another 1, so 4 plus 2, that equals 6. And then last one for 7, because you can only have there's only 7 different options or 7 different ways you can add permissions to a specific user group or other users. So all 3 ones, so if all 3 values are 1, that's going to equal to 7. So 4 plus 2 plus 1, that's 7. Let's say for this, so over here in this example, 777, that means it's going to have a 111. So you're going to have all permissions read, write, and execute. Let's say you want to just do a read and execute without the write. You'll come over here, look for read execute, see the binary value. So 5, you'll do change mod 5, and then for that specific owner of the file, if you're the root user. So I hope that makes sense. Just look at the cheat sheet, try to make it make sense. I'm gonna probably lose you. I'm not very good at explaining things, but let's say we want to just give this group. So let's say this group right here will have the write execute option. We'll assign it 3. So to make it make sense, let's go ahead and change this up a little bit so we can do change mod. Now change mod is used to change file permissions of a file. So let's just do a control D to break it down into a horizontal, break it down horizontally. So we'll see file.txt in question. We'll have read write. So this value is going to be 1, 1, or 6. And then the second pair is going to be just read. So that's going to be the value of 4. And then we'll have the last pair over here, or the last set over here, which is going to be the value of 4 as well. So let's say we want to change the file so only the root user can read the contents of the file and no one else. You'll do change mod to change permissions, and for the numerical value we'll just do read write. We'll keep that the same. So you'll want to find the binary value, which is going to be 6, and then no one else can read or write, or read in this case for this file. So we'll just do 0, 0, so that way no one has permissions, and then specify the file txt. And now if you do an ls-la, or actually that's, and now if you do an ls-l, find the file.txt, the file we just modified, we see that this file only has read write options for the root user. Everyone else no one else is going to have the ability to read or write or do anything with our file. So if we're, let's say, a regular user on this host, we will not have the ability, even if we're in the root group, we will not have the ability to read the contents of the file. Only the root user, because only the root user has permissions to read the file. Let's say we want to give everyone on the system the ability to just read the file. Then what we'll do is change mod. We'll find the numerical value for just the read permissions, which is just going to be a 4. So we'll do 4 for the root user, 4 for the root group, and then 4 for everyone else. This will give us the read option for the file.txt. And then hit enter, do ls-l, come back to file. We'll see that everyone, the root user, the root group, and everyone else on this host or the system will have the ability to read the contents of the file. Now let's say we want to give everyone read, write, and execute privileges. We'll just do change mod 777 because that'll equal to read, write, and execute. And then file.txt, do ls-l. We'll see that the file actually lit up. When it's highlighted a different color, or not highlighted, but when it's a different color, that means we're going to actually have the ability to execute the file. To execute a file, you'll just do a / and then the file name, and then you can execute it. Obviously, it's not going to work right because it's not able to process its, so its isn't an actual command, but you get the idea. Now you can also use a more symbolic or an easier way to do it is just to change mod. Let's say for the user, we want to have just write permissions. We could just specify W for user equals R and then file.txt, do ls-l. You'll see that now we have the right permissions. Let's say we want to set read for everyone else too and the root group. We can do change mod. For the group, it'll be R, and then now we want to do other, so comma, other, so O for other equals write, and then the file in question, do ls-l. Now we see everyone has read permissions. For file.txt, let's say we want to give everyone write permissions and we don't want to give the root group permissions to write. So we'll just do change mod, user equals write, group equals just blank, so that way they get no permissions, and then others equals write. Now if we do ls-l, we'll see that the root user has the write option. The root group has no privileges, and then everyone else, they'll have the ability to actually write to the file. Now let's say we want to give everyone read, write, execute for the file in question. We could just do change mod, user equals read, write, execute, group equals read, write, execute, and then others equals read, write, execute for file.txt. Do ls-l, we'll see that everyone has read, write, execute privileges for file.txt. Let's say we want to strip everyone privileges, so user, group, and others from being able to read, write, execute. We could specify UGO, we can put them together and then equal to read, write, execute. So we'll give them all the ability to read, write, execute. ls-l, you'll see everyone has read, write, execute. Hit the up arrow to go up, and then we can go over here and do subtract, read, write, execute. This will subtract read, write, execute permissions for everybody. So if you see file.txt, now no one has the ability to read or write. But if we want to do change mod, set the permissions the same for the user and others to just be able to read the contents, and let's say write to the file, we'll just do UO and then equals to read, write, and then the file, do ls-l. We'll now see file.txt. So now the root user has read, write, and then everyone else has read, write, but the root group doesn't have any permissions. So I hope this makes sense a little bit. Now you could also just use the A option for specifying everyone, so all the users, group, and everyone else. And then let's say we give everyone read, write, execute to file.txt, do ls-l. Now we'll see we all have the same permissions. Now let's try that again. Now let's give everyone just write permissions to the file, do ls. Now we see everyone has write permissions. So this is an easy way to manage permissions for everyone, whether it's the user, the group, or everyone else on the system. So let's go ahead and just change mod, give everyone write permissions, or let's give everyone read permissions. Do ls-l, and then we'll see everyone has the ability to read the contents of the file. Now let's get into the change owner or change own, however you want to pronounce it. So it's just like chown. So to change a file's owner, you could do, let's do an ls-l real quick, just so we can see the owner of this file. Doing ls-l, we'll see the file ownership for file.txt is going to be read, of course, for the permissions, but the ownership for the user ownership is root, and then the group ownership is also root. So we could do change own user, so that way we change the user who owns the file, and then group who owns the file. The syntax will change the user and the group ownership for the user and user group. But in this case, let's do Kali, since we have Kali as a valid user, and then we also have a Kali group. So currently file.txt is going to be root, so root user, root group. But by changing ownership to the Kali user and Kali group, doing ls-l, we'll see that file.txt is now ownership under the Kali user and the Kali group. Now, if we want to change ownership of the user ownership of the file to, let's say, root, which is us, we can do change ownership root and then the file name, file.txt. Doing ls-l, we'll see file.txt is now been moved to the root ownership. So root user now owns this. So we own this file now. Now, if we want to just change the group, change own, we'll do a colon group. So group would be the group name. This would be to change only the group ownership. So we see for the file.txt in question, we see that the group is for Kali. So we'll go ahead and change the ownership of the group to, let's say, root, and then file.txt. ls-l, we'll see that the group ownership has now been changed to the root group. Now let's look at some commands that will help us manage our systems and our processes. Think of it as checking the health of the system and the status. So to view our current processes, we can run a quick ps and then hit enter, and then you'll see the processes that are running. It's like opening Task Manager on Windows. It shows you a list of processes that are running. So everything that's running here is just going to be the Z shell and then the ps command that we just ran. So we can do ps aux, and then it'll give us a more detailed output. So if we scroll to the top, we'll see the ps aux output command. So we'll see the user. This is going to be the user that owns the process. Let's go ahead and open this out a little bit. So we see we have a bunch of root. So the root user owns a lot of these processes that are running. And then the PID is the process ID. Think of it as the ID for that process. It's just a unique identifier. And then we have the CPU, the memory. So VSZ, this is going to be the virtual memory that it's using. So we see over here 22,000. I believe it's in kilobytes. I don't know exactly for sure. I want to say it is. The RSS is the resident set size. This is the non-swapped physical memory that's used by a task, and it's also in kilobytes. So, and then TTY is the controlling terminal. We see a bunch of question marks. I'm assuming those have not been run in the terminal, but we'll see these that are running in the terminal. And scroll back up, we see stat. This is going to be the status, or the process state. So the state of the process, the start. So when it started. The time is going to be the CPU time that it's ran, and then lastly the command. Now let's say we want something a little bit more in real time. You can run the top command, and then it'll show you the list of processes that are running in real time, so it'll constantly update. This is like Task Manager on Windows, but the Linux version. It'll show you the live processes in action that are running currently on this Linux host. So we can see which one's using the top memory. So we can see 5. So for the CPU usage, the memory, and the command that's using it. Now let's say we want to kill a process, which we're not going to do in this example, but you could easily let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit on that. You could run something simple such as the kill. So kill will kill a process, and then followed by the PID or the process ID. So you can do let's say for the Q terminal, you can enter this digit over here. So this value right here, enter, and then it'll kill it. In that case, it killed the terminal. So we just killed the terminal process. The next command we can use to check the disk space. So doing a df, we could see the disk space and then the file system. So we see this drive right here, we see this mount drive right here, and we see how much space was used, how much available space, and then percentage wise, it'll show you how much the percent of the memory that we used up, and then where this is actually mounted. Now, if you want to see this output in a more human readable format, we can do df-h, and then it will show us the size in gigabytes and then megabytes. So it's a little bit easier on the eyes, and it's a little bit easier to really understand how much you've used, how much you have left to use, and so on. Now, this is a great command just to get a quick overview of your current health status on the amount of space that you have on your drive. So whether it's a virtual drive or a physical drive, it'll show you exactly how much space you have, how much you use, and so on. Now we can use another command called du, which I believe just stands for disk usage. So let's go ahead and append more to that, or pipe that out so that way we can see it. So it'll show you the device usage. So we could do du. It'll show us how much space the directories are using. So for example, the desktop directory is using 4. Now if we want to do --help, let's see if we can see more human readable output. So du-h, and then it'll show some more human readable output. And then over here we see desktop using 4 kilobytes, so very small. So pretty much nothing in our desktop directory besides the trash folder, file system, and home. So now if you want a more detailed summary for a specific directory, we could do du. Let's do help again. And then we can specify S and the H option. So if we scroll down, we see human readable for the H, and then summarize, which will display only the total for each argument. So we'll do a quick du-sh. Let's do home and then the Kali directory. And then it'll only show us the output for the Kali directory, and then the size or the space used by that Kali directory. Now the next command is the free command, which will show you the amount of space used and the free space that you have in your system. So just by running free enter, we see the current state. So total, how much memory, swap memory, how much have been used, how much free space we have, shared, buff, cache, and then available. So this is like checking the RAM usage on your task manager. So if you open up task manager on Linux, or if you open up task manager on Windows, this is like seeing the RAM usage. So we see 7 gigabytes used by the memory, and this 1 by the swap. So how much used, 1, how much free space we have, just about 4, and then shared, buff, and then available. So over here in available, we have 6 gigabytes of free available space or memory. Now to see how long our system has been up, so we can check the uptime just by using the uptime command. So we see over here it's been up for 2 days. This Kali Linux instance has only been up for 2 days. It's a quick way to check the system stability and performance, especially if you have a system in a production environment. You want to see if there's been any outages. Usually systems in the production environment won't reboot, so if it says like 1 or 2 days, that may be an issue. In this case, it's just our Kali Linux instance, so it's okay. So we'll power it off every other night, so it should be fine. Usually I power it off every day or at the end of the day, but for this training purpose, it'll be up for maybe a few days. Now, the next command you may have to download, it may not be installed by default in Kali Linux, but it's the htop command. It's a more interactive way to view and manage your processes on your actual system. So we can actually click around on here. We see main, IO, maybe we can come here, hit setup. Maybe we don't want to do that, so we could go back somehow. But we can actually click around. It's like its own actual wizard that we can play with. So tree size is always sorted by PID. We could check this or uncheck it. You can do Control C to close out of there, and then we could play, sort it, go to state, mshare resident, PID, user, and so on. So we could really play around in here and just have fun. You could use the terminal, so you can use your keyboards. So I'm hitting the up arrow, down arrow. Maybe I want to do setup. We'll hit F2 for setup, and then we can come play around in here. Maybe see the tree size, hit tab, hit space to select it. And then maybe we can, well, that's one way to end it, just by Control Zing that. So that's it's pretty cool command. It's a little bit more interactive, so you can actually go dive deeper into the process IDs that are running and investigate a little bit deeper. So that way you're not just looking at a static disk usage output or looking at the live output that's non-interactive like the top command. So pretty cool. Now, networking is crucial for any system, doesn't matter what system you're working on. So now let's go explore some of the popular networking commands. Now in the networking commands, we'll have our Kali Linux instance here, and then we'll also have Ubuntu running on the side, so we can navigate back and forth. Real easy, real simple. So now the first command is going to be the ifconfig command. Maybe we could zoom out just a little bit. Actually, let me go ahead and remove my face so that way I can make the terminal a little bit bigger. So the if command is used for network interface configuration. Just by typing ifconfig, you can see all the interfaces that are currently on this system. For example, we have the Eth0 or Ethernet 0 adapter, which shows our private IP address at 192.168.162.129. It'll also show us our IPv6 address. This will be our MAC address, so this ether right here, the packets, the errors, and so on. And then we'll also always have our LO adapter over here, which is our loopback. So this is our loopback address, so that way we can always have that running if we want to host anything and things like that. So now if we want to dive deeper into just a specific adapter, let's say our Eth0 or Ethernet 0 adapter, we could do ifconfig Eth0, and then we'll just see the output for that specific adapter. Now another command would be the IP command. Just by hitting IP, you'll see the different options that we can specify. So the IP command is a powerful tool for network management, and if we do IP-A, this will list all the IP addresses. And then we'll see over here, we'll see our loopback address running at 127.0.0.1, and then we'll see our Ethernet 0, and we'll see our Ethernet 0 over here running at 192.168.162.129. There is our broadcast address, and then there's our IPv6 address, and then also our MAC address. Now, let's say we want to bring up an address, so we could do, let's say, IP link set at Ethernet 0 up. This will bring up the address, or we could do down to bring the address down. So if we, let's see, we do an IP-A, we'll see that our Ethernet, oh, and we just saw disconnected over here, so this disconnected pop-up. So running IP-A, we'll see that our Ethernet 0 adapter is actually in the down state. So to fix that, just hit up arrow until you see up, and then run that command. You'll see this should pop up over here saying connected, but in case it doesn't, that's okay. We can just do IP-A, and then we see that the state is actually up. So we're back up again. It's like getting under the hood of your network configuration, so super cool. Now to test network connectivity, we can use ping. So the ping command will actually send ICMP packets to the target host and verify that we can actually reach it. So for example, if we want to do ping google.com, we can see that now we're sending packets and we're getting packets back. So we're getting 64 bytes from this address over here, which is going to be from our Google address. And then over here we see 64 bytes from this domain name, and then the IP address, and then the sequence. So sequence 1, 2, all the way to 12, and it's going to keep on going. The TTL, which is the time to live, and then the time it takes. So we can also do ping 8.8.8.8, which is going to be the physical. So we see we're getting our response back from 8.8.8.8. So that's the Google address. So you can ping both the domain name, or you can ping the IP address. So let's go ahead and do an IPA on our Ubuntu instance actually. And then we can see that we have our IP address, which is .130. Just copy that, and let's go ahead and try to ping it. And then we see that we're getting a response back. So it shows that the host is up. Now, if we want to limit the amount of requests that we send, we can do -C. This will limit the amount of packets that we send. So let's go ahead and just specify 5, and then it'll send 5 pings. It's like sending a message to see if the other computer is online. So after it sends 5 packets, it's going to just go ahead and end it. So 5 packets have been transmitted, 5 received, 0% packet loss. So all 5 packets were reachable to the target host, which is our Ubuntu machine over here. Now we can also run the trace route command. Trace route will print the route packets take to the network host. So you could do a trace route just like that. It'll show you all the different arguments you can specify. So if you want to do trace route, let's say google.com, it'll show us the packets or the hops it takes to reach that network host. So there's our first hop. So this is the route that it takes to get to Google. Usually if you see the asterisk, it's usually a firewall or it's usually blocked. So that way we don't really have to worry a whole lot about this. So let's go ahead and do a better example and actually just run a trace route to our Ubuntu machine. Trace route. So just one hop. So it was able to just hop over and actually reach it without having to do anything else. But if we had, let's say we were able to connect to another VLAN, we'll see more data within here, more routes that it takes from hopping from the current place that we're at, going through different networking switches, routers, things like that, until it gets to that target host. And then netstat, we can run netstat. Just like that, we can run netstat to see the network connections and statistics. Now, for example, this will show you all the connections. So if we scroll up, it can be a lot of output. We'll see the protocol, the flags, the type, so stream, the state of it, the inode, and then the path. So this is going to be active internet connections without servers. So here's our local address, the foreign address, and then the state. So it's been established on the UDP protocol. Now if we do netstat-ANO, same thing like the regular netstat command, is going to show us all the established connections. So connections, here's the listening. So now we're listening here. We're listening for a connection over here, and then connected. To see what the commands are or what these options mean, we could just do -H for help. Go ahead and find our A option. So it's going to display all sockets. By default, it's going to show connected. But by specifying all, we'll see listening sockets as well. And then N is going to be numeric, so don't resolve names. And then the O option, which is going to display timers as well. Now, let's go ahead and jump into SSH. So if we want to connect to a remote machine, we'll use the SSH command. So just running SSH, we'll see the different arguments that we can use. Now let's say we want to SSH to our Ubuntu machine. If we run a quick cat etc password command just like this, we'll see the users of the actual machine. So we'll see the users on this Ubuntu machine, and then we'll see there's root. So this is the big daddy of the system. And then if we scroll down, we should see the nbyte user, which in this case is us. And then you see nbyte over here has its own home directory, and then bin bash. Usually if you see a home directory for a user in the etc password, that means it's another user on the system. A lot of these other users are just going to be service accounts and things like that. So let's say we want to SSH to this machine. Remember the IP address, so 192.168.162.130. Just go ahead and copy that. So we can do SSH and then nbyte, which is the user, and then we can specify the address. So I already tested this before, so you can see that. So this will connect to the machine with the IP address of 162.130. It's like the remote desktop, but through commands. So if you've ever connected to another system via TeamViewer or VNC or a remote desktop, SSH is just like that, but instead of connecting via a GUI, you're just connecting via the terminal. So you're just going to be able to execute terminal-based commands. So hit enter on that. We'll see password. And by default on Linux, when you type, it won't show that it's doing anything. That's just how Linux is. So we actually did type the password, but it's just not showing it. So hit enter, and then we see that we get a banner message over here saying welcome to Ubuntu. Now, if we do a quick who am I, we'll see that we're Invite, and then let's say we'll do a quick host name. We'll see Invite workstation, and then if we do a host name on the Ubuntu machine, we'll see the Invite workstation, and then a who am I will show that we're the Invite user. So if we open up another terminal, we're actually the root user on this Kali machine. So who am I? We're at root, and then host name is just going to be the Kali name. The username will usually be on the left-hand side, and then the host name of the system you're on will be on the right-hand side of this thing. But on the Ubuntu system, we'll have the @ symbol, so it'll show us that we are actually Invite. So Invite, which is the current user, and then @ on the right side of the @ symbol, we'll see the host name of the actual workstation. And we can execute commands remotely from our Kali instance to the actual Ubuntu machine. So let's say we want to read a file. Let's say we have a file on the desktop over here. Let's go ahead and just nano file.txt, and then we'll say it's a beautiful day. So now we actually have a text file on this Ubuntu machine called file.txt. So we can actually access that file.txt remotely from our Kali instance because we're connected to it. So just by doing cat file.txt, we see it's a beautiful day. Now we can do exit to close that. So now we see we logged out and connection to the target host has been closed. So now we're the root user again. Now let's dive into the next command, the scp command. So scp will allow us to securely copy files between different machines. So if we do an ls, let's say we want to copy this file, file.txt, it's a beautiful day that we made. So we could do scp and then specify the file name itself. So secure copy, we're going to copy file.txt over to the Invite workstation. So all we have to do is, just like SSH, we'll do Invite, and then we'll say at the workstation. So the IP address, which is 192.168.1. So 162.130, and then 162.130, and then we'll do a colon to specify the path where we want to paste it. So we'll just do home user or home invite and then desktop, so that way we can put it on the desktop folder. Hit enter, it's going to ask for the password. Hit enter, and then failure, it may have failed because we need to do uppercase desktop. Let's try that again. And then we'll see that it actually sent. So now if we go back to our Ubuntu machine on the desktop, we'll see this file.txt over here. So go ahead and open that up, and then we'll see it's a beautiful day. And then we can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that we modified. So we just successfully copied over, securely of course, the file.txt from our Kali host to this Ubuntu host. Now we're able to do it because we're on the same network. If you're on different networks, it may be a little bit difficult. It just depends how the network's been set up. But because we're on the same VLAN and there's nothing in place, no firewall, nothing like that, we're easily able to securely copy files back and forth. Now let's say we want to copy that file back over here. So let's go ahead and rename this file. So let's go ahead and go to desktop, to ls. Let's go ahead and move the file to, let's just name it test.txt, and then do a quick test. We'll see that the contents are the same. Now let's do scp. We'll do invite at 192.168.162.130, and then we'll specify the directory where the file is that we want. And then in this case it's going to be test.txt, and we'll just copy it and then paste it on the current directory that we're in. Hit enter. It's going to ask for the password of the username invite. hit enter, and then we see test.txt ran. So let's go ahead and do an ls. We now see test.txt. So if we cat that out, we see that it's the same exact file that we had on our Ubuntu machine on the desktop, and we copied it over to our Kali Linux instance. Now we can use the wget command just by running wget. We can use this command to download files from the internet. For example, we could actually come over here. Let's see if we have Python running. So let's go ahead and just do a quick apt-get install Python. Go ahead and do sudo. So now let's go ahead, instead of downloading a random file from the internet, we'll just host a locally running web server using Python on our Ubuntu machine. So we'll do Python 3-m to specify the module, http.server, and then the port to listen on, we'll just do 8080. So we'll go ahead and move the file 1.txt to a different name, so that way it's a little bit more unique. And then let's say, we'll just call it transfer.txt. So cat transfer.txt, we'll see it's a beautiful day. So what this Python command will do is create its own locally hosted web server, hosting all the contents within the directory that it's in. So everything in the documents directory. So if we go back to our Kali machine, just navigate to our Ubuntu host, just so we can actually show you. And then if we navigate to the IP of the system, the Ubuntu system, so 192.168.162.130, specify the port, and then we'll see the directory listing showing the transfer.txt file. Now let's say we don't want to download this directly from the web server, we can just use wget. So we can do wget, specify the URL, so http:// the IP of the target machine, and then the port, if it's running on a non-standard port like 8080, / and then the file. So we'll do transfer.txt, and then we'll go ahead and paste it in our current directory just by specifying a period, and then we'll see that it's resolving, and then it downloaded. So it copied and downloaded the file. We do an ls, we'll see that we actually have transfer.txt. So we were able to pull the file or download the file from this web server locally to our Kali machine, just from the terminal. So if we do cat transfer.txt, we'll see it's a beautiful day. Now the same thing with the curl command. Curl, we can use curl to transfer data from or to a server. For example, if we do curl -o, capital O, let's go ahead and see what that means real quick. Capital O is going to be the remote name, so we can write an output to a file named as the remote file. So curl $O, we'll use this to actually download a file. So curl $O, we'll go ahead and just come over here and copy this, paste it over here, and then transfer.txt, and then we see that we're able to download it. So again, it's transfer.txt. Let's say we want to fetch the web server itself. We can use curl to fetch the web server. So come back over here again, and then paste, and then it'll show us the HTML code for that current server. So we see listing 4, so directory listing 4, the header, and then we see that there is an actual link, transfer.txt, and then the name of that file. Now let's look at some commands for compressing and archiving files. So think of it like packing and unpacking boxes, just like on your Windows system when you're zipping and unzipping files. So there's a popular command called tar. So this command is used for creating and extracting files. For example, if we do a tar-cvf, this is going to actually create an archive for the file that we specify. So if we do that tar-help, we'll go ahead and see the various options. We'll go ahead and find C. So we can scroll all the way up. And then CF, we'll see it archives. So this will create archive.tar from files foo and bar. So these files over here. Now let's say we want to archive the transfer file that we went ahead and downloaded from our Ubuntu server, we could do tar cvf, and then we'll just call it archive.tar, and then the file transfer.txt, and then we see that we now have a compressed file, archive.tar. Let's say we want to extract the contents of the file, so we'll do tar-x, which is going to be extract, v for verbose, and then the file. So it's going to extract the tar archive, and then we'll do tar-xvf, archive.tar. We'll see that it now has the transfer.txt file back in here. Now, the next command is going to be the same. It's going to be the gzip command. You can use this command to compress files just by running gzip. So it'll allow you to compress files. Let's go ahead and actually move the transfer file to our desktop folder so that way we can have it better, so that way you can visualize it at the same time. So if we just do gzip and then transfer.txt, now if you do a gzip and then the transfer or the txt file, we'll see that we actually compressed it. So now it's going to append a .gz at the end of it. And then if you look over here, now it looks like a zipped file, having that zipped icon right over there. Now, if we want to go ahead and decompress it, we can do a gzip again and then -d option to decompress it. So now we'll see that our file was returned back to normal. So it's like shrinking and expanding file to save space. So if it's a really big file, we can compress it to save a little bit of space. Now the zip command packages and compresses files, so we can use zip, and let's go ahead and call it archive.zip, and then we could put our transfer file in this. So now we created a zip file on our desktop in addition to the transfer.txt files. Now if we do an ls, we'll see that we were able to zip the file transfer.txt into a archive.zip file. So now this created a zip archive. And if we want to unzip it, we could just do unzip and then archive. And then we'll go ahead and say yes to replace the file. So let's go ahead and just replace it. And then we see that it was unzipped. But let's say we want to rename it. We can go ahead and specify -r, new name, new transfer.txt. Now it created a new file, so it was able to unzip the contents of archive.zip into new-transfer.txt. Now, just like the gzip command from earlier, you can use gunzip to expand compressed files. So let's go ahead and say that we zipped a file. So let's do new transfer.txt. So we went ahead and zipped it by mistake. Now we can use gunzip to go ahead and unzip that. And then you see that it was actually able to put it back to normal. So just like that, it's like unpacking a compressed file. So it's super simple, super easy. Now onto system updates and package management. So you want to keep your system up to date, and managing packages is crucial. So now let's go ahead and see how it's done. So you want to use the apt command. So apt is used to manage packages on Debian-based system. For example, if we do sudo apt update, we can update the package list. And we see it's going to try to go out and try to pull the latest updates. Now it may take a while, so we'll go ahead and, oh, looks like it just finished. So it did that. So now we can also upgrade installed packages by running sudo apt upgrade. And then this is going to pull the latest upgrades for the currently installed packages. So sudo apt upgrade. Now we see the do you want to continue option. It's going to say yes or no. We'll go ahead and just Control C. A lazy way to get past this is just to specify -y. So every time we come across a accept yes or no, it'll automatically accept and download all the latest upgrades. Now, managing users and groups is essential for system security. Let's see some of the basic commands. So to add a new user to the system, we could do a quick sudo add user and then the new user account. So let's go ahead and say test-user, And then now it's going to ask for a password, so we can go ahead and just give it a password, retype the same password, and then update it successfully. So now we're test, our room number. We don't need a room number at work, so you can leave all these blanks if you wanted to. Information is correct. Now it's adding test user. So it already added the test user. So doing a quick cat etc password, if I can type that right, we'll see that we now have a test user, and then it created a test user directory in the home folder. So if we go back to the home directory, let's go ahead and navigate to it. We'll see that we'll have a directory for the Kali user, which is already there, and then the test user, which you just created. Now let's say we want to delete the user or remove the user. We could do sudo del user to delete the user, and then we'll do test dash user. Now it's going to remove that user. So now if we do cat etc password, we'll see that that user has been deleted and it no longer exists. Now let's say we want to change the password, so let's go ahead and add that user back again just by hitting up arrow. Let's add the password. Now again, you can see that it's not showing you the password that we typed. So do it ls again. Now we see that the test user is there. So change passwords with the password command. So all you have to do is type password. So you could call it password or however you want to pronounce it, but it's spelled PASSWD. And then we can change the password of the test-user. And then since we're already root, we don't have to specify sudo. But if we wanted to, let's say we're not the root user, we could also put sudo in front. So now we can change your password. So let's say we forgot a password. We come in here and give it a new password. And just like that, password updated successfully. Now for the root user, since we are the root user, we can change passwords of other users. And if you have sudo level privileges, you can also do the same thing. But if you're a standard user, you're not going to be able to just go ahead and change passwords for other users. Now, to find out who you're logged in as, you can use the whoami command. It's simple but useful. Think of it as a quick ID check. So it'll quickly tell us exactly who we are on the system. And then you can also use this over here to help you out. Now to see which groups you're a part of, you can use the groups command. So just by typing groups, it'll show us that we're in the group root. Now, if we want to see groups of a user, so let's go ahead and say we want to check groups for, let's say, test-user. We can see the test users is in the test user and users group. Now let's go ahead and say we want to check the groups of the Kali user. We can see that the Kali user is in a bunch of different groups. So DIP, video, plug dev users, Bluetooth, scanner, etc. Now let's jump into some ethical hacking commands. So finally, let's dive into some ethical hacking commands to make things a little bit more exciting. So Nmap, not necessarily a hacking tool, but it's used amongst many pen testers. So we can start with Nmap, a powerful tool for network discovery and security auditing. Now let's say we want to do a ping scan. We could do Nmap-SP to run a ping scan against our target machine and then specify the IP 192.168.162.130, which is going to be that of our Ubuntu machine. And then it went ahead and pinged it. So it's going to give us an Nmap scan report. It's going to show that the host is up, give us the MAC address. So it's running on VMware, which we're running VMware Workstation. And then it says host is up. So it'll show that twice. Now, let's say we want to do a more aggressive scan. We could do Nmap-A. So this will do an aggressive scan. So if we do just a regular Nmap-H for help, we'll see that the -A command will enable OS detection, version detection, script scanning, and traceroute. So we can go ahead and do this against our Ubuntu machine and see what's running on there. Now this may take some time depending on how many services and ports are running. Netcat is often referred to as the Swiss Army knife of networking. So we can use Netcat or NC and we can use a network netcat or NC to make connections or receive connections from remote systems and things like that. So we can do a netcat-nvlp to listen on the network verbosely, and then on the port 4444, and then now we have a listener. So we now actually have an actual listener. So if we do netstat-ANO, zoom in a little bit, if we scroll to the top, we'll see that we actually have a local listener running, and it's listening for any port. So that's what that 000 is. It's going to listen for any port or any IP at any port, and it's listening. Now if we go to the Ubuntu host and we do, let's say, netcat 192.168.162.129, which is the IP of our Kali host, we can actually make a connection back to it. So we can actually send a reverse connection back to our Kali Linux host. And then we see we received a connection from 162.130, which is going to be that Ubuntu machine. It doesn't look like we can actually interact with it, but that's okay. Now the last command that we're going to explore is going to be the Hydra command. And for password cracking, you want to use the Hydra tool, or you can use any other tool. Hydra is a popular choice though. But to set this example, let's go ahead and change the password of our invite user. Let's change it to, let's say, butterfly for proof of concept. You don't actually want to use the butterfly password. Updated successfully. So now we can run Hydra against our user. So you would use the -L option to specify the user. In this case, it'll be the invite user on the target host. And then the password, you'll do a -P or capital P to specify our word list. So we'll just use the default word list that comes with Kali. So we'll find the rawq.txt. This is usually zipped, so you can use the gunzip command to unzip it because it'll have a .gz extension. And then with the password or the dictionary list, you want to specify the directory of which this txt file resides on. And then the next option or argument is going to be the IP of the target machine, so 162.130. And then the protocol we want to target, which in this case we have SSH. So let's go ahead and tackle SSH. And then hit enter, and now it's going to try and brute force. And now it looks like we're actually able to successfully brute force the invite user on the target host for Butterfly. So now we can just do SSH invite at 192.168.162.130. And then the password's that butterfly password we just cracked. And then now we're in. Now that's gonna wrap up the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something in this video. We covered about 50 Linux commands, and we even touched up on some ethical hacking. If you are interested in ethical hacking, we do have a free ethical hacking course in the description if you want to check that out. If you want to see us create more courses, feel free to leave a like or a comment, and we'll keep them coming. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting our channel. We'll see you in the next video.